My name is Dan Young, and welcome to the Millionaire Code podcast. I'm a self-made guy that has made multi-million-dollar businesses from scratch. There's no way I could have done it without the help of mentors who provided me with the wisdom and guidance to help me create the formula for success. Each week on my podcast, I'm going to interview a hugely successful business person that will provide you their secrets to success, and that way can act as your mentor too. I can't wait to share their stories and takeaways with you. Welcome to Dan's Millionaire Code. Hey guys, Dan here, Dan's Millionaire Code. And as you know, every single week, I will bring on a millionaire, billionaire, influencer, someone who's accomplishing great things and changing the world. And today's guest is a very, very close and special friend of mine, Paul Hutchinson, phenomenal friend of mine. And we met, I think, a charity event or something? Or
Probably.
Yeah, like
we're
that.
Gonna do a bunch of them.
We're always at different events and things like that. Let me tell you a little bit about Paul real quick to give you a little bit of background. Paul is co-founder and owner of Bridge Investment Group with more than $14 billion in assets. $14 billion in assets under management. He's got over 1,200 employees right now, so he's got a lot going on. And his investment funds have been ranked as the top performing real estate funds of their kind in the U.S. So pretty incredible stuff there. Also a massive serial entrepreneur. He's got a lot of different projects and deals going at all times. And one big thing is this, you'll find, the thing that I discovered is Paul is probably he has a larger Rolodex. He's more well-networked than any human being that I know. And I know a lot of human beings. I thought I was well-networked. But my Rolodex is probably 2%. That's probably stretching it. Maybe 1% of Paul's Rolodex. But if he's the guy who knows everybody who knows everybody who knows everybody. So he's here today and took time out of your busy schedule to share wisdom and love. And guys, by the way, as you know, with this podcast, there's no ads, there's no program for sale, there's no pitch. You can't even buy anything on it. There's no sponsors, there's nothing. It's just really phenomenal Jedi, massive entrepreneurs sharing their experience for you so you can make your life better and the life of your family and friends. So if you find this valuable, just share it with people you love. That's all we're asking, so you can pay it forward. So that's great. Also, if you profit from the knowledge you get here, I would like you to make a commitment to give 10% of your net gain to one of the charities that you support. And I'm big on a few different charities, and Paul will talk about a few of the charities we both support together that are changing the world. I'll save that for Paul to tell you about. But please take those gains and give, because the more you give, the more actually you'll get. So it's kind of a good deal that is put together in the universe for you. So Paul,
Yes, sir.
We met many years ago, again at some sort of social event, charity event of that. Tell us about your companies that you have now. What do you got going on now?
I got a lot going on, Dan.
How about your favorite ones?
When I grow up, I want to be like you. I want to have my own recording studio in my office. This is kind of fun. So let me back you up though before I forget. You know, you had your audience commit to giving away 10%.
Yeah.
I believe that one of the key decisions that I made early on. Mm-hmm. This is back when I was broke and I had nothing to give. I made a decision that 20% of my money and 20% of my time would go to helping those who are truly in need. Mm-hmm. And I believe that one decision played a bigger role in my success than everything else combined. Now, I worked really, really hard, but I realized that if I worked hard at my goals, whatever they were, I had decent results because I worked my butt off. Mm-hmm. But if I worked very hard and tried to have a powerful, positive impact in the lives of others, I had enormous results in my business goals. Mm-hmm. And very seldom would those results come from my own efforts. They would always come from, call it the universe, call it karma, call it God, whatever you want to call it. They would always come from other places. And I think God does that because he realizes that Paul Hutchinson has a propensity to have an ego. So he wants me to know that I had nothing to do with the growth of a $14 billion company. Every single step of success that I saw was directly related to giving back. Mm-hmm. And so, and I realized too that that's where I got to meet amazing, amazing people. Mm-hmm. In fact, when I very first started the fund, I sold my first company when I was my first really big sale. I sold it when I was 29 years old for 7 figures plus, and actually 8 figures plus.
Wow.
And a lot of it was in stocks, some in real estate. Started investing in that real estate, but when I started the fund, my business partner, John, he said, Paul, he says, you're really good at marketing. The company I sold, I had 200 employees, sold it for $20+ million, but I did infomercials and radio campaigns, things like that. And so when we started the fund, I'm like, John, I have this great idea. I can put a big old billboard out, talk about, we paid a 20% return and I'm marketing. And he's like, Paul, he says, the problem is it's a private investment fund. You can't just do all this advertising. You can't have a billboard
There's
out
laws
saying,
that regulate this
yeah,
stuff, right?
he says, you've got to be face-to-face with potential high net worth investors. So I remember taking a piece of paper and I wrote, where do rich people hang out? Right? Because I needed to get around. And it's not only that, it was, I knew that my income 5 years from now was the average of the 5 people I associated.
Oh,
most with.
absolutely, yes.
And so I wanted to take my Rolodex of people like me and increase it to a Rolodex of people who were just rock stars. And so I realized that most of those people, they got to a point in their life where they wanted to start giving back. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to start joining some charity boards. And I've joined many different boards. I think I've served on or been an active participant in at least 15 different boards with charities over the years, and most of them having to do with children. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on my charity stuff with children. But your question was on businesses today. I retired as a full-time employee of the fund. People say, oh, Paul runs a $14 billion real estate fund. No, I've never run it. I got way smarter people than me that run it. I just started it. But build a fantastic team, and I can talk a little bit about building that team and putting the right people in the right places. Now I invest in a number of other things. I have a really fun company that just started, and it's blowing up. It's so cool. I bought 50% of a company called Hawaiian Coconut Energy.
Oh, it's good stuff.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I sampled that. Remember, you had me come over at your house, and you're like, taste this and that. What do you like?
Yep. And so we kind of found the perfect taste of it and threw it up on Amazon and sold a bunch. And then I did this thing called ClickFunnels, where we have there's some they do the advertising on Facebook and whatever else. And anyway, we actually had to turn off all of our advertising yesterday, because my performance is that we run out of inventory completely in a month, and we got a lot of inventory. So I'm like, crap. Wow. So we turned off our advertising, and we placed a new order for some new products. So in about a week, I'll be able to turn the advertising back on again.
Oh, wow.
Because it's killing it.
So you guys made a killer funnel to...
Yeah, it's just fun. And people love it. People love it. They're looking for something clean. It's got 0 carbs, 0 cholesterol, 0 fat, 0 sugar, and 5 hours worth of energy, and it's beautiful coconut taste. It's like a powder. You pour in your bottled water, shake it up, and there you go. So that's kind of fun. Have a few other little companies that I started on the side. But my primary focus is the charity and a movie that's coming out. I invested a bunch of money into a movie because...
Tell us about this movie.
That's cool.
Yeah. So cool. Can you talk about it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is really cool. So, we'll talk about in a bit is my passion with Operation Underground Railroad and the Child Liberation Foundation and eradicating something that's a dark subject, child slavery. But back at the time of Abraham Lincoln, it wasn't guys that were rescuing the slaves that created the biggest difference. It was people like Harriet Beecher Stowe. She wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, which was the media of the age that created an awareness with good people of what was going on in the South. In fact, years later, when Abraham Lincoln met Harriet, he shook her hand. He said, so you're the little lady that wrote the book that started the Civil War. Oh. So today, if my goal is to have a massive impact in the lives of millions of people and stop what I believe is the curse of our generation with the challenges that are happening with children. Realize this, there's more today, and it's the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world, and there's more today, and I'm not talking about just children who are being abused at home, which is horrible. I'm talking about sold human beings. There's more today than all 300 years of the transatlantic slave trade put together. And good people don't know that's going on. And so our goal is to create a movement by creating awareness. And so it's a dark subject, but you can shed a lot of light on it when you're talking about the rescue and rehabilitation and reuniting of the children with their families. So we put together a really good team in Hollywood. It's not a little indie film. It's a $15 million production called The Sound of Freedom.
Oh, wow.
And it follows a story of the most successful child rescue operation that we've ever done. It was in Colombia. In one day, 123 children, largest child rescue operation in one day in history.
Wow.
And we follow the story of some of the children. Jim Caviezel played Jesus in Passion of the Christ.
Wow.
And Count of Monte Cristo, he was the Count.
Wow.
And so he's in the movie, a bunch of other actors, and that'll come out sometime later this summer.
Wow.
So we're excited. We're all done filming. They're just doing editing
Is
right
this
now.
so? This is with Operation Underground Railroad, or
Yeah, well, no, it follows Tim Ballard's story. So it's actually sponsored by the Child Liberation Foundation.
Oh yeah,
OUR,
so that's the organization you started.
Yeah,
and you're
yeah.
really good friends with Tim, and
Tim and I-
affiliated with OUR and all
absolutely. We fund a lot of stuff with OUR, and we were very, very tightly involved with them. But the OUR can't fund and promote a movie about that Tim has a vested interest in. There's some political things we have to deal with there, and so I put in a bunch of the money in the production. Brought in some other investors. We have some huge investors, some really big names that are excited about coming in with us. 20th Century Fox has the marketing rights for South and Central America, and them together with Amazon are looking at some marketing rights here in the U.S. So
that. Should be pretty huge, right?
it'll be big.
When is it coming out?
They'll finish editing the end of May, and then after that, it's up to Fox to decide when they want to actually release.
Wow. Is it gonna be everywhere? Movie theaters, and then also
Yep.
Amazon and
Yep.
Netflix maybe, and all this kind of stuff.
We'll have theaters throughout the country that'll
That's cool.
pick it up. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun because I believe that it's going to make a massive impact. And that's where I am in my life now. I speak to young entrepreneurs all the time, and they ask me, what is it that that got you going when you were just young and just getting started? And I tell them, I says, number one, you have to have a why. A person who understands how.
Let me take notes on this.
Okay,
one.
this is powerful.
This is your why.
This is the why. I tell people that a person who understands how to do something is never at the mercy to somebody who understands why. That the why card trumps everything all the time. In fact, when I was very first starting, I'd built a couple companies and I was mentoring some young entrepreneurs. And I wanted to introduce this young entrepreneur to a friend of mine who was my mentor years before. And so we were sitting there in the car together, and it was an amazing subject. My mentor said to this guy who I was mentoring, he said to him, he says, so, what's your why? What's your dream? And this young guy, he says, well, that's kind of the problem. And my mentor says, what was that? And I thought that he really didn't hear him. And so I says, well, he says, that's the problem. And my mentor turned to me and he said, no, Paul, he says, as his advisor, as his mentor, that's your problem. He says, what are you doing telling him all the how-tos when you haven't helped him identify his why? And I realized, wow, that's really powerful. My job is to help identify the why, and then everything else comes into play. So if I can figure out, so I'll actually take some of my young entrepreneurs, I'll sit there and I'll teach them a bunch of how-to books and everything else, but I'll take them and looking at Ferraris and Lamborghinis and looking at the houses, because it's okay. And I had one guy that came to me, he goes, Paul, he says, I feel kind of guilty, looking at Ferraris. Is that why I want to build my company? I mean, it motivates me, but, shouldn't I just be philanthropic and just want to do it for the right reasons? I says, is being a Mother Teresa going to get you out of bed at 6 every morning and make you go to work 15 hours a day? Is it going to make you? I don't know. I said, so I said this. I says, I use things to motivate people to do the right thing long enough for them to realize the right reason to be doing it. I says, you're right.
Huh?
The
Yeah.
right reason to be doing it. You and I give a lot of money to charity. We make a massive impact in the world. We inspire people. We hire hundreds and thousands of people who now have jobs and are feeding their family because of what you and I created.
This is ringing me so hard because I remember in the mid-'90s, I went down to Steve Harris Imports, the Ferrari dealer, and I think I was driving some crappy Toyota Celica that had like 200,000 miles on it. It was burning oil, right? And I put my hand on this Ferrari F355 back then, the old model, right? But it was new back then. And I was like, oh, one day. And when I was a young kid, I was like, that was the motivator. And I wasn't too generous at that time. I just wanted to get out of poverty.
Exactly. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because you having that dream of that Ferrari, me having the same kind of dreams of a nice house and all that motivated us to do the right thing, build a business, create something good for the world. to do the right thing long enough until we started realizing the right reason to be doing it was actually to be making this massive impact. That's what makes us feel good now. Just
That's
buying
true.
another Ferrari doesn't...
No, it's not that exciting.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Yeah, all
It's
right,
cool.
got another one. Yeah, that fires me up for a little while, but that lasting energy that comes from, dang, I just changed some lives. I just made a massive impact, so.
That's the big one, and the thing that I've discovered on this podcast, having different guests like you on, is abundance. A lot of people think people that are abundant are very self-centered, and maybe at certain points in life, people are self-centered. But typically, it gets to the point where there's only so many meals you can eat, so many things you can drive, how big of a house, how many houses can you have, and it's just maintenance at that point. And everybody shifts, especially as we're getting older, right, into give mode. It's like, how fast can you give it back to everyone, else?
But you want to give it in a way. See, for me, I had to kind of segregate that a little bit. I realized that if I was giving a lot of money to a 40-year-old man who made bad decisions, now he's asking me for drug money,
That's bad.
then I'm perpetuating the problem. You know what I mean? But if I'm giving it to those who are truly innocent, that's why I chose child-related charities. I was on the Make-A-Wish board of directors for 7 years, and serving with Operation Underground Railroad and the Child Liberation Foundation. And these are because then I can say, okay, this 9-year-old child that is in a position right now completely outside of any choices that she made.
Yeah, I can't do anything.
Exactly. So I'm going to pull her out. One of the most precious moments is when I saw this 14-year-old girl. If you watch the documentary Operation Toussaint that talks about our rescue missions in Haiti. And I went in.
It's out now. People can just watch it.
Yeah, you can go on to Operation Toussaint, Toussaint. It is amazing. It'll rock your... It talks about the transformation of a nation because of our child rescue missions.
Wow.
And it's not a downer. It's amazing. But there's a little part on there. You'll see this little girl near the end. She's on a rocking chair. She's holding a teddy bear. Her face is blurred out. She's 14 years old. We had just barely rescued her. 7 years to the day from the time that she was kidnapped at 7 years old. And she was crying, and she said, I didn't think anybody would ever come. She said, and every single man that walked through that door, there was this big red door, steel door. I was the very first person in 7 years to walk through that door that wasn't there to harm her.
Wow.
And she says,
what a horrible life.
Every single man for 20, 30 times a day for 7 years was there to harm me. And it was so beautiful to see her freedom and her light in her eyes and the hope that she can live this beautiful life. And I'm going to back up a little bit, though, a totally different subject.
Okay.
You mentioned a word that really clicked something, and I think this is so important for entrepreneurs. You mentioned the word abundance. My philosophy on money and wealth and economics is different from a lot of people, and I think that you've got to change the mindset of people in order for them to get through the fear of money. See, the problem with a lot of people is they think that by making money they have to hurt somebody else, and there's a beautiful part in our hearts that doesn't want to take from somebody else just so that I can have. The problem lies in the definition of economics. Okay, you open up any economics book, and the very definition of economics is the division of scarce resources, which is a fallacy. There's enough raw resources in this world where you and I and everybody else could have all the food we could ever eat, all the cars we could ever drive, all the beautiful house, all the clothes we could ever wear. Right? The reason why some people have this roadblock of making wealth is they think that money is bad because the only way that I can get money is to take, and that's not true. Every one of my companies, we've been able to create success out of thin air without harming other people.
Yes.
It's a win-win-win. In fact, the English language, I love the fact that we call it to make money, because it's to create money. Other languages don't have that, to make money. But we really do. We create, we make money. In fact, you go back thousands of years. In fact, between 600 BC all the way up to 1400 AD, the general consensus was that the world was flat. And if you talk to any astrologer and you ask him, you say, what's the definition of astrology? He will say, well, I study how the stars and the planets and the sun revolve around the earth. And the very definition of what they did precluded them from understanding the truth that the earth wasn't the center of the universe. Today, the very definition of economics precludes people from understanding the truth that we don't live in a world of scarcity. We live in a world of abundance. And when people start seeing that indeed we do live in a world of abundance, then they change their mindset about money, and they change their mindset about how they're creating it, and they don't have to build a business that's a dog-eat-dog that destroys everybody else. They can create something that's a win-win-win, a win for their customers, a win for their employees, and win for everybody all the way around as they're creating. So, in fact, perfect example from a tech standpoint. I tell the story about 10 men on an island. I give this credit to a lot of this to a friend by the name of Paul Piltzer. Paul was the economic advisor to President Bush and President Reagan. He wrote a book called Unlimited Wealth and inspired me as I was younger. But he talks about that stuff with economics, but he also talks about 10 men on an island. And every day these 10 men go and they go fishing for their families. And they're out fishing every day and they have just enough fish to feed their families. Well, then 2 guys come along. Their name is Dan and Paul, right? And they're there fishing every day with their families, but they've got a dream. They're like, oh, you know what? Well, there's got to be a better idea here. So Dan comes up with this great idea of a net. So him and Paul together, they're out sewing their net every single night, and pretty soon, now Dan and Paul, they're little entrepreneurs. Now they're able to go out and catch enough fish to feed the entire island. Now, the problem we have is 80% unemployment, right? Because the 8 men now don't have to fish anymore because Dan and Paul's new invention is now feeding the whole island. And so at that point, our past administration would have taxed Dan and Paul 80% of their fish to feed everybody else. But a well-functioning economy of those 8 men who are now unemployed because they can't fish anymore because we're already feeding the families, one of them would get better at building huts, one would get better at building boats, one would get better at educating the children, and lifestyle as a whole for the entire island increases because Dan and Paul decided to come up with the idea of being entrepreneurs.
Because there's more fish coming out, and that adds to the whole ecosystem.
Exactly. Everybody wins. This is the reason why the poorest among us today live better than the kings of old. If you've got a microwave and a refrigerator and an air conditioner in your house and a cell phone, you trump the lifestyle of the wealthiest people 1,000 years ago. Because of the fact that people like Dan and Paul and you, people who are entrepreneurs, come up with the ideas for a net that now can do so much more work and everybody else is able to be more productive.
And this is what I was thinking, is this, my family's from China, but I was born in Los Angeles, right? It's a little east and west mixed together. But one thing that this is why I'm super proud to be American is, America is where these nets are invented.
Yeah.
Right? All these new innovations and that really changed the world. That's what makes America so great, really, is all these beautiful new inventions, from iPhone to computers and things like that. All this stuff's being invented here. And then typically these other countries are replicating, right? But we're adding this new technology to the ecosystem. And a lot of it comes from around the world too. But America seems to really pump out so many beautiful innovations like this. So like the island, right?
Yeah.
It's so cool. I love it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's phenomenal. I love that.
So it's a core philosophy that I believe changed how I thought in the beginning and made the biggest difference in.
Can you tell me a little bit about, you're talking about how when you were younger you were broke. And I was broke too. I remember having to count change in the laundry room because my mother was crying because we had no money for food. Yeah. And I remember counting that, and then she's like, okay, we're going to go to Ralph's supermarket in California and get some food now. And she was crying. And they'd stack up all our bills. And my dad, super churchy guy, and he was like, let's pray for the bills. And I coughed out a hairball. I'm like, wow, one day I want to be able to do something. I mean, we're going to pray about this. And maybe our Creator will help us too. But, well, maybe He's already given me the tools here to make a difference and make this go away faster, get better. That's what actually motivated me to become an entrepreneur. I'm curious about your story about when you were younger.
Yeah, I remember when we decided that we would go to Disneyland as a family. We would the kids every day would go across the street over to the park, and we would dig through the garbage cans to get all of the aluminum. And I remember pouring out all of the beer because there was a lot of beer parties and stuff. So we'd pour it out, and I'd come home stinking like beer, but I would pour them out and squish them, and would bring home big bags of aluminum so that we could help pay for our trip to to Disneyland, and even then, you know, of course, I didn't ever fly on an airplane when we were kids. We piled in the back of we had this big long. Little station wagons with wood on the side of them, and the rear seats facing backwards, you know, or
It's back in again.
Exactly.
Oh,
it
new
is.
Teslas, right? You can get the reverse seats.
Oh,
right?
fun! Yeah, we're in the back, just waving at everybody, you know. So but it was very motivating, and now you know my dad worked really hard, and by the time I got married, we actually were doing a lot better. I tell him, I says, you know what, my sisters all lived a way better lifestyle than I did growing up because they were able to go on these vacations. But, you know, I think it motivated me a lot. And then even when I was working a job, starting my first company, I remember that I had to work my job just to be able to pay the bills. And I had to be up at 6 a.m. every single day for my job. And my business required me to drive to St. George at least 3 times a week. So I would work from early morning, 6 in the morning until about 4 in the afternoon is when I'd get home. And actually about 3 in the afternoon, I'd change and hurry and get everything ready and stuff. And then I'd drive to St. George. So I could be down there by 6:30 or 7. And then I'd work from 7 to about 9 in St. George with one of my companies down there. And then I'd get back in the car and I'd drive back home, and I'd be getting home a little after midnight. And I remember rolling down the window just trying to keep myself awake because I knew I was waking up at 6 a.m. the next morning. And I would actually, everybody was asleep but me. You know, all these houses were dark. And I remember rolling down my window and saying, go ahead and sleep, losers. I'm going to be rich someday. You know, I told myself I'm willing to do today what the average person won't do. So that I'm willing to do today what the average person won't do so that I can enjoy tomorrow what the average person can't even comprehend.
That's true.
So yeah, you and I live a lifestyle today that it's hard for the average person to even comprehend. You know, I got to meet with the Pope in Rome last month. I met with some members of the royal family, which is fantastic. I took my kids on a vacation that they would. I took him. We went into Zurich, Switzerland. I rented a Lamborghini and a McLaren, and we drove throughout Switzerland. And you know, we went over. We decided to go to the Formula One races in Monte Carlo in Monaco, and we rented a helicopter and flew in over all of the big yachts, and we got a suite right on the top with the race going around us, and then we had the after party on the back of this huge yacht, and I mean just stuff that you would have never even dreamed of back 10 years ago. We're living that lifestyle today because I was willing to do what the average person wouldn't do to be able to provide that lifestyle later on.
You know what your superpower is? You know, one of my job actually is to read people. and your superpower is one word that I see. It's charisma.
Thanks, Dan.
And literally, it's funny though because I've seen you at different events, right? And I'm fairly charismatic and social. I try to be, you know, like say hi to people and be nice and stuff. But when you walk in there, it's like, oh, it's Paul, right? And literally, you're able to get, and this is crazy. And guys, this is just the wildest thing. Literally, in our state here, you're able to get 90% of the most successful people somehow in one room.
Yeah.
Like at some random, like we were at John's house. He was on John Festana's house. And you're like, hey, you should stop by. Oh, John's my friend. We go there and everybody's there. And usually people flake and stuff, but somehow you got like this 90% attendance thing. So what is the trick or not trick? What's your technique? Or did you read a book? Did you mentor teach you this? How did you get? Were you just born with it? Like, you know. You
know what? I actually wasn't born with it. I wasn't all that charismatic in high school.
Really?
Yeah, I really wasn't. I ran for student body vice president and lost, to a guy who was totally uncharismatic for sure. His dad was just richer than mine, and so had a little bit more advertising dollars, I guess. But I realized that the more I could hold my mind on a dream or whatever else, and it just motivated people to come and follow. I also realized that attitude. Somebody told me once that success is 99% attitude and 1% attitude. It's still attitude. It's not, people say 1% hard work, no, it's all attitude, because your attitude is what drives you. It's what gives you the energy to move forward. And people say, have you ever had a bad day? I says, yeah, I didn't like it. I decided not to do that again. You know, why have a bad day? Why decide to be negative? Why decide that the world sucks when the world can either, in fact, somebody said once, he says, Paul, don't you ever go through crap in your life? I says, yeah, everybody goes through crap. And some people choose to just sit in the middle of the crap and say, oh, look at me, I'm in the crap. I just go fast enough that I hydroplane across the crap. You know, I don't want to sit in it. Why would I want to do that? I have to go across it anyway, we all do. And so when I changed my attitude and just realized that the world really could be whatever I dreamed it could be. And everybody's watched the movie The Secret, you know. I truly believe that the energy that we create within our mind is what draws things into our life.
Absolutely.
It does.
I totally agree with that.
So why not visualize a world of abundance? Why not visualize what you want and then work hard, and you'll be amazed at how fast these things start to come. People who believe that bad things happen to them, bad things happen to them. Why? Because it attracts them.
They're willing it, right?
They are.
They're using the force to like pull the negative energy.
Force is more real than you can imagine.
Totally, huh?
It is,
it's
you know.
completely
People are like, oh, Star Wars, you go about Star Wars showcase. It's real.
Yeah.
It is totally legit. You know, you can call it faith, you can call it the law of attraction, you can call it whatever you want to. It is the most powerful law in the universe and the most dependable when used correctly. And it's simply this, is the unwavering conviction that what I want to have happen will happen. You know, you look at other laws of the universe. One that says, you know, I drop this pen, it's going to go down. That's not always true. If I'm in outer space, it's going to float. If I'm in an airplane going down, it's going to go up. Will I let go of it? The law of faith works every single time, or the force, or the law of attraction, every single time. And people ask me, how do you find the traffickers when you're doing undercover work with child liberation, or how do you get in the door with these massive power families and whatever else? Honestly, it's that power. It's visualizing what I want and confidently seeing it. The problem is most people have a hard time with unwavering conviction about anything, because they have a hard time. They don't know if it's in line with what their God wants or what their universe wants or whatever it is. And so they're like, you know, does God really want me to marry this woman or to start this new job or to go this direction, whatever else? And they don't listen, and they doubt what's inside.
Now you know the answer to everything.
You really do.
You do. It's there. You know the answer.
Okay, so there's a guy I met years ago that I can't remember his name. I think his name was Gary. I need to look it up. He actually was tested at the University of Utah as the highest IQ that University of Utah ever tested.
Wow.
He never graduated from 3rd grade. Yet he was the inventor of the wireless microphone, countless medical devices, even the original software that was used, that Siri and the voice recognition stuff. He invented a lot of that stuff. And a lunch with him just opened my eyes to everything and realizing how powerful your thoughts are and bringing things in. He said, Paul, you could have the highest IQ ever recorded. He says, it's not my IQ. He says, it's my ability to listen. He actually wrote a book, I think it was called Feel and Grow Rich. Now, I don't think it was that great of a book, but it talked about the importance of listening to your heart and your inner feelings. Now, what he said was this. It was so powerful. He said, Paul, the universe has been in existence for how many years? I said, I don't know. He says, trillions of years. He says, and whether you're religious or not, the reality is there are intelligences everywhere. He says it would be so naive for us to think that we're the only intelligences in the entire universe, or trillion. Are you kidding me? And so he said, what you need to understand is that I didn't invent the wireless microphone. It was already invented. He said, trillions of years ago, somewhere else. He says, everything that is there, all truth was already there. All you have to do is just tap in and listen. He says, there are countless composers that the entire piece was note perfect the first time because it was already written. He said, when you start to understand that and realize that we live in this world of truth that is out there, and you start just tapping into it, he says some amazing things happen. He said, it's kind of like if you've got a computer, and back in the day when we had those little floppy disks, he says, and you had no internet access whatsoever, and your only ability to put information into that computer is putting one of those disks in and pulling the information off of that disk one at a time. He says, it takes you a long time. He says, unfortunately, that's how we learn from books and tapes and other people, is we're putting a little floppy disk one at a time. He says, then you imagine a high-speed internet connection with the entire world of the internet out there with infinite knowledge that's there. He says, that's what it is when you're listening here. He said, people discount their feelings and their intuitions because they know not from where they came. He says, when you're discounting it because you think, oh, that's just my own thoughts and I kind of suck at thinking about stuff. No, it wasn't. It was a whole bunch of other knowledge that you just need to start listening to, and it will guide you through this direction of massive success in whatever area of life that you want. So
It's absolutely true, because this is an interesting theory. There's a theory I call seven dwarf mentality. I thought about this a long time ago. You ever watch that with the seven dwarves, right? And they're in the gem mine. And this mine is so vast. There's all these glistening gems stuck to the wall. And there's only seven dwarves, right? They couldn't possibly mine all of them with just seven dwarves. That's how big the universe is. And literally, it's funny, because when we went to that one get-together at John's house, there's, I don't know, 80 dwarves there or something like that. But literally, like, these people would say these are the luckiest people in the universe. But these people aren't lucky. They're just tapping into what you said, and they're executing upon what that is. So instead of just, well, I kind of hear it, and it's shoving it off, they're like, I hear it, it's right, and I know it's a good thing, and it's an abundance thing where I can help people, and they execute. And then suddenly it's like, why are you so lucky? Like, do people just throw millions of dollars at you? The universe will throw millions of dollars at you if you're using those tools that you're talking about.
Absolutely.
So we're all like little dwarves in a gem mine.
That's right.
You know, and have a great opportunity, and it's just mining that. I always say to a lot of the team people that I mentor, literally, as fast as you can fill that wheelbarrow up and shovel those gems out of that mine and go and help people with it, it's there for you. And the more you help people with it, the more valuable the gems are, the higher quantity is, and people will start actually helping you load up. And they're just like, let's go. I mean, it's very much that simple.
So true.
But then the mind says that the doubters, and if you're into Star Wars too, you know, when Luke is standing upside down and Yoda or whatever is standing on him, or when he's running around and he's levitating rocks, but as soon as he doubts that, though, all the rocks fall. That's really how it is in life, right?
So true.
I mean, like, the rocks fall when you stare at the wall. And that's what Tony Robbins was talking about years ago. You know, you stare at the wall, you're going to crash into the wall. Speaking of Tony Robbins, it was kind of crazy, because I remember when you first started talking about Operation Underground Railroad and the different charities you're doing, I was like, is this like a small local thing? And I got some sort of message from you, and you're like, hey, man, come hang out with Tony Robbins. And then suddenly we're at this thing. There's, I don't know, just tons of people there. And Tony Robbins is in the room with us. And he's like, hey, man. And we're all talking about, he's on stage talking about what you guys are doing. I mean, it's that big of a deal. So you have...
I was with Tony last week in Florida. Tony had me come out. He had his one of his big conferences out there, and I was the only person out of thousands and thousands of people in the audience there that he actually called me by name and said, I want you guys to give it up to my friend Paul Hutchinson. Come on up, and gave me the mic, and I raised $950,000 for child rescue missions.
This is an insane passion of yours, because whenever I talk to you, you always focus on giving. Focus on giving. Focus on giving.
It's my why.
I mean, it's like, that why is literally, it's 24/7. And it's amazing. I love it.
Well, and the good thing
is, energizing.
Good things keep on coming.
The universe keeps throwing you gems, and people are helping you load your wheelbarrow, because they know you're going to take that and help these kids with your wheelbarrow. So it's just amazing.
It's exciting.
This is interesting, because I don't think we've had anybody on the podcast yet that has talked about it in this way. So this is super refreshing, and I just enjoy it. Well, you're such an optimistic dude, so I want to hear something. I'm going to ask you a question which I'd love for you to talk about if you can. What is the most scary point in your career, you know, where it's like, oh, man, and like, you know, your heart's pounding, you're like, am I going to make it business-wise or financially or whatever it is? marriage-wise, or whatever it is. What was it? Do you ever have that point in your life that was the most challenging, and how did you deal with it?
Yeah, I got a lot.
How was your big, huge one?
For anybody to think that I had just roses all the way along because I believed in gems in the ball, I had a lot of crap. I had a lot of crap I had to go through in my personal life. I tell people, if I'm going to write a book on business, it's going to be all these awesome business techniques and one on philanthropy and whatever. If I tried to write a book on my relationships with women in my past,
is that your tough one?
Everybody would laugh. Be like, this guy's a retard. I'm telling you. So anyway, but yeah, there have been a lot of times where things weren't going my way. And
what's your biggest fumble? Life just hit you in the head with a brick, and it was challenging to get through it.
Yeah. I had there's so many. There's so many.
Your biggest one.
Yeah,
I know. We all got a lot of them.
There's so many of those. When the financial crisis hit in 2006, 2007, we were fortunate. In 2006, I hired a guy who had called the Asian crisis before it happened. He was brilliant, and he told me this guy was going to fall in on us. And I had just that year, we had just built up our company. It was called Bridge Loan Capital at the time. We built it up to the point where we were close to $1 million income off of this new company per year, each one of us. And we had to take zero income for the next 2 years and just cut everything off to be able to form everything that we needed to. And it was difficult. It was difficult negotiating with the new companies that we were bringing on. It was difficult wondering if it was ever really going to come together like we thought. And I had to put everything on the line. I ended up losing a house that we had built, a cabin up in Park City. I lost that, lost hundreds of thousands of dollars that I had put into that, had to give that back to the bank. Things got really difficult for a while. And but how I held on was I just kept my eye on the goal. I knew that eventually we would get through that darkness. Eventually we would pull through. If I just kept the faith, kept the commitment, just kept working hard, I would pull through that. And there's been many times where people have thrown a lot of fiery darts at me, trying to.
I've seen some people take advantage of you.
Oh yeah, huge.
You're just like.
Yeah.
Go. I mean, you blow it off.
I've gotten to the point where I'm kind of like a duck in a rainstorm,
Wet duck.
A wet duck, man. That water it's just got to go. Because if I had sponges on my wings, I'd be drowned for sure. Because it would just push me under the water with all the water that's just coming down. So
a lot of people think you're like this dude that has so much abundance that it's cool for them to just take and hurt.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Purposely, you have no feelings. You're just like daddy Warbucks of,
Yeah.
And it's weird because I see some of the stuff and I'm like, oh, interesting. And I hear some people say sometimes it's like, what? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
And people just, I don't know, it's strange. But those are typically the people who want to take and not give.
Yeah.
Or they have some weird ulterior motive.
Yeah.
To being your friend or whatever it may be.
Yeah, exactly. They come in
strange,
and they pretend like you're their best friend, and they also wear their religion on their sleeve. You should trust me because I'm,
Never trust because of the religious card.
Exactly,
right?
and that's
look at the human card.
Yeah, and I in the last 2 years, I've lost $500,000 to one guy who was a complete scam artist, and then another $300,000 to another one, and then another couple $100,000 that'll pay off. I have another $800,000 with another guy, but that one I believe is gonna still come through. He's not a scam artist. He just is having a hard time making it all happen the way as fast as we were supposed to. But
I added up in 24 months. I through those type of situations where people didn't do it right, took advantage. $2.6 million.
Well, I'm going to feel a little bit better about my 1.4 then.
In fact, $1 million lost in 90 days because of strange, bad. And I lost my guts. I was like about to puke. I was just like, are you serious? Really? Are you, what? And it's like, wow. and it blows you away. Especially if it's through like deception and theft, people
Yeah.
doing that, and you're like,
Yeah.
you know, trying to help.
I trusted you.
It's weird.
You and I were friends. We were hanging out together, and all of a sudden now
But I learned
totally
something.
deceived me.
I talked to my mentor from 25 years, and he said, "Oh, well, did you learn something?" I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Write it down right now." So I wrote it down. And he goes, "Let me read that." He goes, "Well, that's worth more than $2 million."
Exactly.
I'm like, he goes, "Don't you think, Dan? Will you ever let that happen again?" I'm like, "No."
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah,
So the
that's
bad things are a good thing if it's an education.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've realized the importance of really good friends who don't have anything to gain from your money are so valuable. And my business partners, they have to have verified fruit on the tree. You know, I'm a natural rescuer. That's what I do with the children and stuff. I'm not gonna rescue some failing entrepreneur who's in his position because of bad choices he made. You know, I'm not gonna allow my boat to be taken
They
down by
they
that.
gotta run their own path, man. Right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you can give. You're always willing to give advice.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just done giving money to.
You can't write them a check though if they're drowning on their own accord. They gotta
Yeah.
they gotta do it on
Yeah,
their own.
for sure.
Yeah. But this knowledge though that you're sharing with the viewers out there it's seriously gold. It is more valuable than if you wrote a check for $100,000, $200,000, $1 million. I mean, really, if people would take just the concept so far we've talked about and executed and trusted that and executed for themselves, the abundance is there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's
Yeah, we're going to create massive wealth from your audience.
So I want to shift a little bit more to charity, and we've talked a little about OUR and the other ones that you're supporting, different things you're supporting. Where can people go to help support these charities? Is there some websites and things like that?
So a lot of your viewers, especially if they're here in Utah, have heard of Operation Underground Railroad. It's had a lot of traction here, and Tim Ballard and I are very, very close friends. We started a new foundation called the Child Liberation Foundation, and it's important. I need help with traction there. It just barely got all of its paperwork and stuff put together, but there are what it does is it vets organizations that are all involved in the fight against child trafficking. Some that are helping with the adoption process. Some that are helping to find the families for these children. Some like OUR who are going in and physically pulling out these children. Some like Ashton Kutcher's organization Thorn that we've funded that actually does some online stuff and takes down the predators beforehand. There's an entire process there, and also helping with the awareness, paying for things like the movie and things like that are so important for the awareness. And so. We have somebody that's redoing the website for us now. We had a great talk yesterday with some fantastic artists that want to come together and bring some of their music in with us. But,
Nice.
But that you can find that on liberateachild.org.
Liberateachild.org.
Yep.
Okay.
The Child Liberation Foundation, and that one we believe is gonna. It's raising money for the Nazarene Foundation, which is in the Middle East,
great.
that we're pulling some of the Yazidi children out of a horrible situation. That's being funded through the Child Liberation Foundation, as well as Children Need Families, which is a foundation that helps with the adoption. We paid for I think 20 plus adoptions over the last little bit, because you don't want to pull a child out of hell and put them into another hell of an orphanage for the next 10, 20 years.
You want to get kind of back in the negativity.
So we've got to get them out of that, and the answer to that riddle is a family. That's the reason why Elizabeth Smart healed so well, is she had a loving family that was there, a support system. And so if we can't help the
It's
the
expensive though. I mean, once these kids are rescued, to place them in a good home, there's a lot of paperwork and BS.
It costs us between $1,500 and $2,000 per child to pull them out of hell, but it costs $20,000 to $30,000 for the rehabilitation and the adoption process to find a long-term family for the child.
Wow.
So that's
what you're focusing on.
That's where my focus is.
It's cool.
Is finding that long-term solution for the children.
I love it. I love supporting all these different causes that you have. We've been to a few of your events and stuff.
Yeah, you have. You were there at the last two for the Child Liberation Foundation.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, I really
In
appreciate
fact, Jimmy was here. Jimmy Rex.
Was he really?
Yeah.
I love
when
Jimmy.
he was talking
Such
about
a good friend.
He's probably, man, his charisma's pretty up there too.
Yeah.
Boy, people love Jimmy.
We get along well together.
You guys are both like, you can have a show. You guys can do a movie about you guys together. So what is there anything on your bucket list, like big stuff that you want to achieve in your lifetime still that's on your why list?
Oh yeah, I got a bunch of them. If
What are some
I
of the big
didn't,
ones?
then that would suck. You know?
Which your big ones now? You got some ones. that
I
stand
want to
out?
go in outer space.
Oh, that'd be fun. Can
Yeah,
we go? Can I go,
yeah,
bro?
for sure,
Let's go.
for sure. You know, and depending on where space travel is, I'm not taking years to get to Mars. That sucks. But if they could figure out how to get there fast, you know, I totally do. Otherwise, I'm totally going to go in outer space and maybe even hit the moon just for fun. You know, you guys think, oh, that's stupid. No, it's real. I mean,
Skip around on the
and-
moon and drive the rover.
Yeah, what up? You know, and also I'm planning on living to at least 150. And people say, oh, I don't want to live that old. But what if you could be in your 40-year-old body all the way that long? What if
I
someone
might even dial it back to 25.
Exactly. You know, realize this, the advancements in medical technology, if you have enough money and you're healthy enough 20 years from now, I believe you can reverse that aging process.
Oh, for sure.
Truly. I mean, there's so many exciting things going on. So that's
They have ways now that they can make like cells live for hundreds and hundreds of years.
exactly.
And they could do that with you. They could alter your DNA
Exactly.
to.
Yeah. So I'm so excited about that.
But
project.
just think how much we could accomplish and give back together. Because literally, most people live to what, like 75, 80 or something
Yeah.
like that. I mean, if you had an extra 100, 200 years, how much of a difference you could make to the
Oh,
planet?
we're gonna rock it.
I mean, you could like save the whole planet,
Love it.
rescue all the kids.
Yep. Solve world hunger.
There's two big causes for me. I love what you do. That's not my number one cause. It's the number one charity. The second one, it's called Nuzzles and Co.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, rescuing all the dogs and cats from being killed. Because, well, humans first. Those girls and those boys, you know, that need to be rescued is really critical. Dogs and cats can't help themselves either.
Exactly, they're innocent.
You know?
that falls right in line. You know, it's not a 40-year-old man who made bad decisions. Now he's asking you for drug money, right?
Yeah.
It's innocence. Those animals are innocent, and
We have a
need
duty.
second-
We have
do.
a duty.
Absolutely.
And friends, you have a duty with your abundance that you get is to help out.
Yep,
I mean, that is. And the weird thing about it, it seems, and this is kind of a universal, the more abundance that we have and help with and truly give, it comes back not just tenfold, it's like thousandfold or more.
Yeah.
And it's just weird. It's almost like if you want an instant way to change your luck, is help, right? It's weird. Yeah. It just blows me away. And it's totally opposite that I was taught when I was younger and I grew up in kind of gangs in LA and terrible stuff like that. Everyone's like, it's all your own. It's all, think about yourself. Forget everybody else. And it's almost, that was the opposite of really how the universe works.
Yeah.
It trips me out.
Yep.
It's always super refreshing to hang out with you because I always feel like I can do more, help more, build more. Every time I talk to you, man, it's crazy.
Well, we'll be racing our private jets 5 years from now. What?
So I want to summarize some of the lessons that you've shared with me and everyone else in the audience. So the why card is very important.
Yep.
The why card is more important than the how.
Absolutely.
So that's a big Paulism. Identify your why
Yep.
before anything. So is there a technique to do that you could share with how to do that why card? You just ask yourself why and write it down, or is there?
Yeah. Here's what I do. I actually draw out two little circles. One circle is a small one where you are right now, and then a much bigger one who's where you want to be. And this goes for all of us, even where you and I are right now. Our circle of where we are right now should be smaller than our circle of where we want to be. And most people spend more time planning out their next vacation than they do planning out their life.
Yeah.
Right? They do. They're
Goals.
all,
They have weak goals, right? They're
Exactly.
like,
But if you write down, if every car in the world cost $1, what would you drive? If every house in the world, if you could live anywhere, anytime, if time and money were no issue and you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do?
Yeah.
That's the question. Whatever the answer to that question is, if time and money were no issue and you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? Would you be an NFL football player? Would you be the next president? Whatever it is, if you knew you couldn't fail, and then fill in all the different parts of this circle here. You've got a piece of pie that's your time with your kids and what things you want to do, and the cars you want to drive, and the house and the vacations, and the charity, and the time, and all of this different stuff. And realize this, that people spend their life climbing a ladder only to realize that it's leaning against the wrong wall because they never filled in that big circle. They never figured out their why. They never figured out where they wanted to be. And it's okay if your goal in life is to have a 3-bedroom house with 2 bathrooms and a slide in the backyard for the kids. Great, fantastic. Write it down and you'll get there. But if your dream is to be able to go into outer space and give $250 million to charity, write it down, you'll get there too. They did a study at Yale University years and years ago. And they found that of the graduating class, only 3% had clear, specific, written goals.
Wow.
20 years later, that 3% was worth more in net assets than the entire other 97% put together. Irregardless of what major they had or what their GPA was, the simple difference was they had clear, specific, written goals. So whatever it is, just take some time, take more time to write down that than you are planning on your next vacation, and write them down. And then go look at them, visualize them, drive that car, look at that house, and see yourself in it, because you've got to get over that self-doubt. And once you believe in yourself that you can have, do, and achieve, then you'll motivate yourself to get out of bed and do the work necessary to get to that point. And then, like I say, once you get to that point, then you'll start realizing the right reasons to be getting to that point, which is making a massive impact in the lives of others.
And what you're saying is not hokey or BS, because when we've been in rooms with hundreds of people that have achieved this type of success that you're talking about, the common factor between all those men and women is they did this.
Yeah.
Like, so if all these people are doing it, it works for all these average humans. And these are people that were counting change to buy groceries for their mom.
Yeah.
And pouring out empty beer cans to eat or go to Disneyland or whatever you're going to do. If people that have nothing, who didn't inherit it, made it from nothing, and it just works and it works and it works.
It works.
It's just pretty simple, right?
Yep.
I mean,
Yep,
as
it
long
is.
as you do it.
Yep.
Okay, so I love that. The another one is do today what average people don't want to do,
Yep.
right? So do it today. Take action.
Yep. So that you can enjoy tomorrow what the average person can't even comprehend.
And then I got Paul's wisdom. Success is an attitude,
Yeah.
right? It's an attitude. It's something that you really have to just viscerally have surrounding you.
Yeah.
And when you're down, put yourself in that mode.
You
of what
can
your outcomes are.
choose to be positive. You can choose to have a positive outlook. You know, people say, "Oh, I'm just a pessimistic person because things just suck." No. You can choose to look at anything. You can look at a glass half full or half empty. You can choose to have a positive attitude. And that positive attitude and that dream and that vision, that energy will just bring abundance into your life.
I found that true, in that there's always something that's wrong that you can focus on, but there's always something that's right.
Yeah.
So if you put your mind into what's right, if you put it in the mind of what's right, things tend to go more right. Not perfect, again, but like you, Paul, being the wet duck.
Yeah.
It tends to make it easier as you're getting the crap beat out of you when it does get rough, right?
Exactly.
And then the outcome is good. This is killer. What is now? Also, you have a personal website, and that site it kind of links to all your different things, so that people can see charities and everything. I went to it. You have an amazing website, and it just talks about all the different things they can read about. So, what's that website?
It's just paulhutchinsonofficial.com.
Wow, that's
So,
a good site.
it's
Paul
simple.
Hutchinson
Official.
.com. That's pretty cool.
PaulHutchinson.com was taken by, I don't know, some psychologist up in
I like the
Ogden.
official.
It's official. That's right.
We'll put a link, guys,
That'll be
below, and you could click through and visit Paul and see what he's got going on and what charities to support. He'll have links to everything there, right?
Yep, that we do.
This is so cool, man. I
Thanks,
appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule. You have many companies, many things, but you take the time to give and help. Again, you're doing it right now to all the viewers out there.
Well, I appreciate it.
Man, I appreciate you.
You're a good man. Appreciate
Guys,
you, Dan.
guys and girls, there's no fee, there's no subscription here, there's no pitch, there's no advertisers, there's no sponsors. This podcast, I just take the resources I have, I pay for it to put it on because I want to help you guys truly. And so how can you repay Paul or myself for the time and the knowledge? It's simple. Execute what you're learning here and share it with friends and loved ones. Share it with them. You can see more content actually on Instagram, Facebook, on YouTube. Just search Dan's Millionaire Code all over. You can just Google it. And there's more knowledge there for you. Execute and share that. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this. So go out and execute and make it happen. And again, thanks, Paul. You are
Thanks, Dan.
mega Jedi, man.
Thanks,
I appreciate
brother.
you. Thank
Appreciate you.
Take care, guys.